The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show. Coming to you each week and bringing along a basket full of refreshing and nutritious liberty and freedom. You may have been eating some junk food radio over this past week, but that's okay. I'm here with homegrown liberty. Here in America, we grow sparkling and invigorating freedom. No additives or preservatives. And every Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, you can come here to the Freedom Farmers Market at WNOX FM 100.3. Grab you up an armful of refreshing liberty and take it home. Don't worry about refrigeration, by the way. It won't spoil. It will lose its nutritious value, so you do need to come back here each week and pick up some more. We'll have plenty to go around. A word of warning, don't be fooled by imitation liberty and freedom, and there is a lot of it out there. Only here on the Patrick Riggins Show will you get the freshest harvest, guaranteed to satisfy your craving for independence. Oh, and I forgot to mention, if you'd like to tune in and see what crisp and clean liberty looks like, just bring up your web browser and type in www.wnoxfm.com. There you'll see me, your loyal field hand, bringing in today's crop. I send it out to you in an unprocessed and virginal state. If you're watching on the internet, the person to my left, speaking of virginal, is the show producer, Tori.
Yeah.
Juggling the sound, the music coming in.
And your horse.
Yeah. And I noticed we have the volleyball on again this week, but it's not the beach volleyball.
No, but it is female volleyball, and they are wearing shorts.
So you're halfway there.
I'm happy. Just keeping it between the ditches today, Patrick.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. I told Tori before the show started, this is going to be a weird show.
And it was as soon as I tried to hit the music, which did not come up, as probably everybody noticed.
Yeah. But the good thing is we got it going now. We're going down the road.
Just pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, fumbling around. I want to make a quick note. Tomorrow morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. on the Ed and Bob Show right here on WNOX, I will be appearing at the 9 a.m. hour to talk about the Patrick Riggins Show, and you can call in if you like the show or if you don't like the show or just have a question about something. But I'll be on that show at 9 a.m. in the morning, which is a little different for me, being how this one starts at 4 p.m. So I'll see if I can get me a Red Bull or something.
Right, you got to get up early.
Get up early and be happy, put a smile on my face.
And answer any questions.
Answer any questions anyone may have.
Like, do you like chocolate bunnies?
Well, they're okay, I guess.
Well, see, it could be that kind of hard-hitting questions that you're going to be hit with, so you got to prepare yourself.
Got to be ready, dude. Got to be ready for questions from anywhere.
Got to prepare yourself.
So, well, and chocolate, the milk chocolate bunnies, yes. The dark chocolate, no.
See, I like the dark.
That's kind of bitter, though. I don't like that. So I like just the milk. All right, but again, that's 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and so if you have any questions or anything, or just want to call up and scream at me, feel free to. 9 a.m. at the Ed and Bob Show in the morning. Anyway, to start off the show this week, I always like to do it this way, and that's to thank everyone for listening and tuning in again. I know sometimes it's frustrating to watch the news and think we are losing the country, but don't think that. That is what these socialist and big government types want you to do. They want you to give up the fight. It makes it so much easier to implement their flawed ideas and policies if there is no resistance. Always, always be working to convince others of the values and rewards of living in a free society, one not dominated by an overbearing and, frankly, oppressive federal government. And really, government everywhere, because nosy busybodies are at all levels of our elected officials. We need to be sure the people we're electing to office are not going to carry out a policy of putting the liberty and freedom, or they are going to carry out a policy of putting the liberty and freedom of the American people first. This means they need to put it before the lobbyist that's in their office or before their own agenda. The citizens of this country should be first and foremost on the mind of these people. If our representatives did that, we would have a lot less problems in the way of needless and freedom-robbing laws. And lest we forget rules and regulations from government agencies, because a bunch of our representatives go through this huge revolving door from government service to either being a bureaucrat in some agency or into a lobbyist position with industry groups. But don't think this fight will be easy, though. We're living in a country increasingly dominated by people who want the government to solve all their problems. They believe government should provide them with housing, food, health care, heck, even a cell phone with their monthly minutes already paid. The problem is government does not have any money. It doesn't produce anything. Government can only take money from one citizen and give it to another. If government is using that money to do something that's constitutionally allowed, that is one thing. But government outgrew that limitation before the ink was even dry on the parchment on which the Constitution was written. Crack open any history book and read the arguments some of our founders were making. Quite a few did not believe in the people. They did not think citizens were capable of making decisions for themselves. Since then, we have been in this constant tug of war with those who, instead of serving others, they want to rule them. Fortunately, a lot of Americans are starting to wake up and try to turn things around. We're up on our first break of this crazy show already. When we return, we'll be getting into a story about the Olympics, your privacy, some stuff on Iran, and a lot of more after these quick messages here on the Patrick Riggin Show.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggin Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
And welcome back to the Patrick Riggin Show. After that quick little break, we can get right back into it. We got a ton of stuff to get into. This week, past couple of weeks, we've had the Olympics on TV everywhere, and I hate to have to admit this, but I think I'm one of the only people in the United States who is not watching the Olympics. but that doesn't mean I'm not keeping up with everything, though. As someone who's constantly looking at these things through the prism of freedom and liberty, I noticed one little thing that might have escaped a lot of people, but our athletes are responsible for paying taxes on their wins. Yes, taxes. So whenever one of our swimmers, gymnasts, bicyclists, or the sport Tori follows, women's beach volleyball, whenever they win, so does their caring and kind Uncle Sam. Not only do our athletes win a medal, they also win money, which is provided by the United States Olympic Committee. Now, these amounts currently are $25,000 for gold, $15,000 for silver, and $10,000 for bronze. Other national governing bodies also pay out for medals. For example, USA Wrestling is paying up to $250,000 for a gold medal, and USA Cycling is paying $100,000. Of course, the United States is not alone in making these payments. Italy offers $182,000 per gold medal, and Russia awards its athletes $135,000. Now, not content to merely tax the monetary payouts our athletes receive, the IRS also taxes the actual value of the medal awarded. The gold medal is only a little over 1% actual gold. The remaining material is 92.5% silver and 6.16% copper, making it worth about $644 by itself. The silver comes in worth around $330, and the bronze at a whopping $4.70. To solve this little conundrum, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida has introduced a bill to eliminate the federal government's tax on Olympic medals, remarking that this amounted to another way the government tries to punish those who succeed. While I agree with his introducing of the bill to cut someone's tax, I don't think the government is trying to punish those who succeed. It's just doing its normal thing of trying to get every little bit of money that it can, no matter where it has to go to do it. His bill would exempt the honorarium and the value of the medal itself from any federal taxes. Now, of course, their local tax jurisdictions might have something to say about whether they plan on collecting tax on those items or not, but at least this would get the feds off the athletes' backs. However, not every member of the Olympic team wants to drink from the fountain of liberty and freedom and low taxes. Todd Rogers, a member of the 2012 team, stated, quote, "For me, I make enough that I should say I should get taxed." He did admit that a lot of it would depend on how much money you make. If you are an NBA player, I think you should pay taxes on it. But if you are a track guy who makes $25,000 and was groveling to make it to the Olympics, he shouldn't be taxed, unquote. I guess this demonstrates the government class propaganda is working. What Todd Rogers, and I would call him Mr. Rogers if I didn't think I'd hear jokes from the producer of the show, but what Todd Rogers does not understand in his quest for fairness is that if people are paying a different percentage of tax, then that is inherently unfair. What so many people in this country have fallen prey to is this massive redefinition of what is fair and what is not. It used to be that fair meant we all paid the same percentage of our income. That would be fair. Some people pay more in actual dollars and some pay less. But since it is a percentage, it would all be the same and thus fair. A sales tax is fair. We can choose to pay it or not, and if we choose to pay it, it's the same percentage for everyone. If I buy $500 worth of groceries and someone else buys $100, the actual amount of money collected is different, but the percentage is the same, and thus fair. But we have allowed people to convince us that system, while just fine for sales tax, is totally wrong for income tax. Fairness is now defined as the actual amount of taxes paid, not the percentage. So if you pay no tax, and about half of Americans don't, then is it fair to you to use the roads, the bridges, the things Obama mentioned in his speech a few weeks ago? I have a quote from that real quick if you want to hear that. We'll pop that in real quick here.
Somebody invested in roads and bridges. If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
He says you didn't build that. To that, I would add, you didn't pay for that. If you aren't paying any federal income tax, then you're getting a free ride on the back of all your fellow citizens. If you want to talk about fairness, I would say that's extremely unfair. And this was the very argument the liberals were making about Obamacare, that there were too many so-called free riders who weren't paying their fair share, as these clips from Nancy Pelosi illustrate.
It's a penalty that comes under the tax code for the 1% perhaps of the population who may decide that they're going to be free riders. It's a penalty for free riders. Those who want to be free riders have to pay they either have to take responsibility and buy insurance, and there are many ways for them to do it, or they get a penalty.
So there you go. If you don't have health insurance, you are a free rider. But if you don't pay your fair share in income taxes, well, that's fine. Not paying in one area is not acceptable, yet doing the same thing in another is okay. This is the problem with both sides, Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative. They are both inconsistent when applying their principles, because when you get down to it, they don't have any. Other than the principle that government should do what they want it to do, neither really want government out of your life. They just want it doing what they think it should be doing, telling you how to live according to how they think you should. This is why this radio show is attracting the huge audience that it is, because I argue for policies from an American ideal, not a big government one. And those two ideas, contrary to what politicians, the news media, and even some well-meaning people will tell you, those two ideas are not the same. Government is not here to nurse you, to take care of you, to make sure all the risk is taken out of life. These ideas are mentioned over and over on this show. Here's a clip from one of the first shows I did. Let me see if I can bring it up here.
We used to be a nation with people, when they got knocked down, they would jump right back up. You could ask an employee who just got fired or laid off, or an entrepreneur that lost their business, and you'd say, well, what are you going to do now? And they would respond, well, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to move over here because there are a lot of people hiring in that area. They would pull themselves up by their bootstraps and make the situation work. They would turn around a bad situation and use it as an opportunity. Now, when you ask people that question, the first thing people say is they want a government program to take care of them. We're just rapidly becoming a nation of dependent children.
Here's one more clip from one of those early shows explaining risk here in America.
Today, far too many people want to have it both ways. They want all of the rewards in life without any of the risks. If something goes right, they want the big payoff. But if something goes wrong, they want the bailout.
The point here being to not look to government to take care of you. Take care of yourself. We used to do that in this country, but now it has fallen out of fashion somewhat, even to the point that if you are self-reliant, a self-starter, you are looked at as if you are a kook or some sort of crazy backwoods anti-government type that needs to be watched. The Department of Homeland Security sure thinks so. They're on record as being on the alert for people who are, quote, nationalistic or reverent for individual freedom and liberty, or even if they are suspicious of centralized federal authority. Those are quotes directly from a DHS report. But as I stated in the first segment, don't let that stop you from fighting, because if you give up the fight, you've lost. But if you don't give up the fight, you won't lose. We are on the side that is right. No matter what you've been told, right always wins out. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to get there. While we're on the Olympics here, I had a real quick story also. Although, let's see, it's 4 women. I figured Tori would like this one. 4 women carried out a topless protest at the Olympics.
I like it.
Not that they were protesting people being topless. They were topless women protesting. But before you get too excited, Tori, I think it's good to mention that I've watched the video, and it isn't anything like what you might think. It wasn't like it was a bunch of, well, swimsuit models protesting. I'll leave it at that. Yeah, the women were from the Ukrainian group Femin, and they are internationally known for organizing topless protests against sexual discrimination and corruption in the Ukraine. A statement on the group's Facebook page claims the protest was against countries carrying out Sharia law competing in the Olympic Games. Their Facebook quote was, "With the support of the IOC, which is the International Olympic Committee, these Islamist governments use the participation of women in the games to hide thousands of victims," unquote. Interestingly, Sharia law is becoming more and more commonplace in the country where the Olympic Games are actually being held. And part of Sharia law states that there is a ban on alcohol, gambling, drugs, music, smoking, and homosexuality, as well as on men and women mixing in public. So I would guess the next place the gay rights activists will be protesting are their local mosques instead of the Chick-fil-A. Although if it was a topless protest, we might have to do a remote to cover that event, Tori.
Yes.
And we'd be doing it from purely a news point of view.
Yes.
To let our audience know we are constantly on top of these sort of things in the community.
And I am willing to make that sacrifice.
There we go. Maybe to get ready, we run across the street to Hooters.
For you, the listener, yes. Training
at
you.
Hooters.
They're out there just cussing us right now.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people probably cursing me.
These are the jokes. These are the jokes.
All right. We're up on the middle of the break here, middle of the hour already here on the Patrick Riggin Show.
Where are we?
It's 4:30. We're at the break. Tori is still recovering from the start of the show.
Oh, man, I don't even know where we're at.
Yeah, tally there. You didn't think I'd get that.
Oh, you got that reference.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I don't know what's going on.
All right, this is the Patrick Riggin Show. We will be back with the last half hour of this very interesting show. We'll see what happens in this last half hour. Come back after these messages.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the last half hour of the Patrick Riggins Show. Trying to get a little mellow now with Tori here. We're trying to get this show back on track.
Mellow. Good times.
Yes, good times.
Good times.
Good times.
Yes.
Coming back in, again, welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show. Yes, Tori sleeps. We'll try to keep it quiet so we won't wake you up. This is Patrick Riggins, and this week, well, for the past few weeks, we have been just stomping around the world looking for another war to start, it seems like. The Congress has been debating a bill to impose sanctions on Iran because they are supposedly developing a nuclear bomb. Now, whether they are or not is the subject to a lot of conjecture and no real evidence. An interesting aspect, and one that I think clearly demonstrates the liberals and conservatives are really very much alike, is the fact that the very people now saying we have to go teach Iran a lesson about trying to build a nuclear bomb, which all we have is, again, circumstantial evidence on. These same people are the ones that were deriding President Bush for wanting to go to war with Iraq under these almost exact very same conditions. Over and over we heard how he was a warmonger, and now that their guy's in office, all of a sudden it isn't such a bad idea doing the same thing to Iraq's neighbor. One of our favorite congressmen, Dr. Ron Paul, addressed this on the House floor the other day, and I want to play you a couple of clips from his speech, starting with this one.
I think this bill would be better named if we called it Obsession with Iran Act 2012. Because this is what we continue to be doing, is obsessed with Iran and the idea that Iran is a threat to our national security.
He also goes on to explain how Iran is not a threat to our country.
Iran happens to be a third world nation. They have no significant Navy, Air Force, intercontinental ballistic missiles. The IAEA and our CIA said they're not on the verge of a nuclear weapon. It's so similar to what we went through in the early part of this last decade when we were beating the war drums to go to war against Iraq. And it was all a facade. There was no danger from Iraq. So this is what we're doing, beating the war drums once again.
This national security argument was addressed by me also on this show just a little while back.
I would contend that a lot of these wars we have fought and are fighting are not really people who are threatening our freedom.
Now, stop and think about this for a minute. We currently have our military hands in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we are being pressed to interfere with Syria and now Iran. This is exactly what we used to chastise the Soviet Union about, interfering in the affairs of other countries. And these four are just the prominent ones. We have our military all over the world. And who is paying for this? Why, it's us, the American taxpayer. We are funding all this military action, and in response to it, our government takes away more and more of our freedoms in order to help press the war effort. Of course, we are funding it. Us, the U.S. taxpayers. So, I guess if you want to draw a thread through all of this, we are directly funding the confiscation of our freedoms and liberties in the name of saving our freedoms and liberties. How much more crazy can that be? Anyway, back to Dr. Paul on the House floor. Here he is addressing the fact that imposing sanctions on a country is not a trivial matter.
When you put on sanctions on a country, it's an act of war, and that's what this is all about. The first thing you do when war breaks out between two countries is you put sanctions on them. You blockade the country. So this is an act of war. What would we do if somebody blockaded and put sanctions on us and prevented the importation of any product in this country? We'd be furious. We'd declare war. We'd go to war.
Sanctions are tossed around so much that we have become used to hearing about them without really thinking about what they mean. I think Dr. Paul drives the point home when he puts it in the perspective of these same things being applied to our country. Here, he correctly identifies who is the problem in this situation.
So we are the antagonists. We're over there poking our nose in other people's affair, just looking for the chance to start another war. First it's Syria, then Iran. We have too many wars. We need to stop the wars. We don't have the money to fight these wars any longer.
He's right. We don't have the money to go around the world fighting all these wars against countries who aren't a threat to us. Some people use the argument, what if they get a nuclear bomb? They'll use it against Israel. No, they won't. Does anyone in their right mind really think that any country on this earth cannot get hold through some channel or another of a nuclear device? Heck, we had 3 protesters get inside the gate and through multiple fences at Oak Ridge last week. You're going to sit there and tell me acquiring a nuclear bomb is going to be any harder? Especially in Russia or one of the former Soviet Union satellite countries. Iran is not going to nuke Israel. The leaders know it would be a foregone conclusion that the retaliation would wipe that country off the map. Do you ever notice these leaders, these supposedly devout people who will do anything for jihad, they don't ever strap bombs to themselves and become a martyr. It seems to always be a good idea for someone else to do it, but never the leaders. People are not the ones who go to war. I think a lot of the world is starting to wake up to this realization. It is governments that go to war. And in the same way, it always seems to be a good idea to send you over to fight, but never for them to go over and fight. If it's the leaders who want to fight, let's let them fight. I don't have a problem with that. If we need to go to war, let's go to Congress and have them vote on a formal declaration of war. That's how it's supposed to be done. Not through some UN dictate that says we need to go in as, quote, peacekeepers. That isn't our business. What if we had the UN when we were trying to fight the British for our country? What if we had the UN when we had our Civil War? Would we have a brokered peace, whereas the South stayed seceded and the North stayed with the Union? Actually, that might not be such a bad deal in that situation. The South could have negotiated better terms for joining the Union, so I guess that really isn't a good example. But and no, the Civil War, it wasn't about slavery, and Lincoln wasn't the great emancipator, but I'm not going to get into all of that on this show. Maybe we'll devote a future show to debunking all of that. Should make an interesting time on the phones, though. But we don't need to be in Iran any more than we need to be in Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan. Radical Islamists are all over, not just in those countries, and they will always be with us. So how about this? How about we stop poking our noses into these other countries' businesses? We concentrate on cutting taxes and our endless spending and grow our economy. More importantly, though, is getting back our liberties and freedoms, which our government has stolen from us under the guise of national security. Without us fighting all these so-called wars, there'll be no reason to continually restrict our God-given freedoms. Of course, I'm whistling in the cemetery. There is not enough hurt and pain. Exactly, Tori. There's not enough hurt and pain in this country to prod the population into doing anything yet. There are too many people who are living off the work of others right now. Conditions have not become bad enough to push people to action, but hopefully we can rally enough citizens who are concerned about the state of our country and things that are starting to appear on the horizon that we can make a difference. We can begin turning this ship around. So when the rest of the country wakes up, most of the heavy lifting will be done.
They got a desert, we'll fight them.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the topless women from that last story, Porn star Jenna Jameson was appearing at the San Francisco Strip Club Thursday night and decided she was ready to reveal to the public her endorsement for president. She stated while sipping champagne in the VIP room at the Gold Club, she'd like to see Romney in office. So I guess Chris Rock was right when he stated these words.
No matter what a stripper tells you, there's no sex in the champagne room. None.
Nope. Only presidential endorsements. Unless you're a prominent sports figure or a musician, then who knows what's happening in there. You're a musician, Tori. What happens in the champagne room?
Don't know.
Monopoly?
Yes, Monopoly. Checkers. Checkers and chess.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I could.
I said chess.
Okay. I say I could just really derail this show.
Chess.
All right. We're up on the last segment of the show, the weird Patrick Regan show.
I ran.
Oh, yeah, he's got it. All right, we'll come back after this last segment and this little bit of the Bomb Iran song for those of you old enough to remember that.
Throw some rocks, tell the Ayatollah, gonna put you in a box, bomb Iran, bomb, 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 bomb.
Speaking of the topless woman from that last story, porn star Jenna Jameson was appearing at the San Francisco Strip Club Thursday night and decided she was ready to reveal to the public her endorsement for president. She stated while sipping champagne in the VIP room at the Gold Club, she'd like to see Romney in office. So I guess Chris Rock was right when he stated these words.
No matter what a stripper tells you, there's no sex in the champagne room. None.
Nope. Only presidential endorsements. Unless you're a prominent sports figure or a musician, then who knows what's happening in there. You're a musician, Tori. What happens in the champagne room?
Don't know.
Monopoly?
Yes, Monopoly. Checkers. Checkers and chess.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I could.
I said chess.
Okay. I say I could just really derail this show.
Chess.
All right. We're up on the last segment of the show, the weird Patrick Regan show.
I ran.
Oh, yeah, he's got it. All right, we'll come back after this last segment and this little bit of the Bomb Iran song for those of you old enough to remember that.
Went to a mosque, gonna throw some rocks, tell the Ayatollah, gonna put you in a box, bomb Iran, bomb, 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 bomb.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Regan Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome back to the Patrick Regan Show. Having, well, kind of a lighthearted show this week. Discussing some serious issues, but punctuating it with some little bit of lightheartedness, kind of on the tail of that other story about Iran there. I want to get to this one. FoxNews.com ran an exclusive story, and why I mention it here, regarding some interviews they had with some of the commanders of the Free Syrian Army. The commanders were warning of dire consequences if our country did not step up and give them the aid they needed to give people hope and keep them from turning to extremist groups as the security situation worsens. Apparently, al-Qaeda-linked groups and other Muslim extremists are increasingly entering the battlefield to fill the vacuum created by the lack of international support for the Syrian rebels, recent reports suggest. Yet it's the perception that the U.S. and its allies aren't doing enough that worries the commanders. One of the commanders, Ahmad Mustafa al-Mohammed, he's the deputy head of the Free Syrian Army, he said, people are reaching a boiling point and more delays of aid and loss of lives risk their turning to extremism. He warned that al-Qaeda fighters had already tried to cross the Turkish border into Syria and penetrate rebel camps. But, he added, they had been contained for now. They said the Syrian people had huge and urgent needs and would eventually take help from where they could if U.S. aid was not forthcoming. And now, is it me, or does this sound like a shakedown?
Yes, that's kind of what I was just thinking, man.
Yeah. I guess we really shouldn't be surprised, because it's the exact same tactic the United States government has used to take away more of our freedoms in this country. You better let us do this, or Al-Qaeda is coming to get you. It's the same old argument every time. And it seems the Syrian rebels have decided it sounds really good, and from all appearances in this country works rather effectively. Hopefully, we'll resist the siren call of war in Syria and let them handle it themselves. We have talked over and over on this show about the need to end these wars all over the world, our involvement anyway. It always seems like such a great idea when the people making decisions are not the ones, as I've said, having to go over there and fight. Personally, I'm getting really tired of our servicemen and women going into this area of the world, that Middle East, and getting maimed and killed, all for these countries that are not threatening us. If you're growing weary as well, let Congress know your disapproval. Tell them to stop sending our people all around the world. If it's such a great thing, tell them to go themselves. But we don't need to be sending our guys over there to, and women too, to get hurt and killed, all for these people who really just don't give a crap about us.
Well, they've been screaming, "Why are you the world's policeman?" Now they're screaming, "Why aren't you the world's policeman?"
Yeah, come on and bring yourself and that aid.
Yeah, when we're over there, it's go away, and when we're not there, it's please come and help us.
Yeah, and they want that aid. Bring your army and that aid. Bring that money, because we've sat around and watched their leaders, these other leaders in these countries, just get rich off foreign aid coming out of this country, and it goes right into those leaders' bank accounts. It doesn't go to the people. It goes to those leaders' bank accounts. So now they want to get in on it too. And they see all that money going, and they say, well, hey, I want a big fat Swiss bank account too. And I can't say I blame them, but I can say I blame Congress if we start sending money over there. For those of you who might not gotten out this weekend, you might not have noticed the huge crowds at the malls and other shopping centers. Well, it's due to this being a tax-free weekend. And what I want to do is just real quickly look at this lesson that's being learned. You drop taxes and economic activity is stimulated. When I drove in, the traffic was absolutely crazy, and these people were out taking advantage of not having to pay sales tax. Just think if we reduce taxes nationwide, this amazing amount of economic activity that we would create just by doing that. Why can't our politicians see this? Because they think they would have to reduce their spending if they reduce taxes. To sit up there in Washington or Nashville or wherever your state capital may be and stubbornly say that reducing taxes doesn't stimulate economic growth, well, it's just asinine. Either you're too ignorant to be holding office, elected or not, or you don't really want this country to thrive economically. Because to do so, I guess, would reduce our dependence on government for answers. If things are bad, people are going to increasingly turn to government for answers, and that's exactly what they want. The answer is to not elect these people who don't believe that reducing taxes stimulates economic activity.
Now you're just being silly.
Exactly. I don't understand that. I came in and got off the interstate down here.
Well, it's like that every time they do it too. It's not just today. It's every tax. Not to throw you off a little bit, back whenever I used to be a courier driver for FedEx and DHL, it was the same thing. It's tax-free, so it was a lot of computers and everything that went out. You would not believe the amount of computers and laptops that I delivered on the tax-free weekend, because it would still be, you don't have to go to the store, you can order it from the from Dell or whatever.
As long as you pay for it.
It was almost like a little mini Christmas every time they have a tax-free weekend on everything. So,
well, and I'm sure you saw it too. When I came in, for those of you in Knoxville, I got off down here at West Town Mall exit, and traffic is backed onto the ramp. I mean, you can't, it looks like Christmas.
Yeah.
I sat here when I came in, I was sitting in that traffic a little bit, and I thought, how in the world can you not see this?
Yeah.
Unless you're just intentionally blind to it.
If they could get gas prices down to where it's kind of normal, they would get even more people out. But it's been going up and down 20, 30 cents a week now. It's real unstable.
Well, just look at that little yellow thing on the pump there that says how much the tax is.
Yeah.
You know, they'll say the federal tax is this. You just take that off. You know, we'd have plenty of money. It's just ridiculous.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Exactly. Anyway, I want to tell you guys, thanks again for listening this week. And don't forget, we're coming up on the end of the show here. I'll be appearing on the Ed and Bob Show on this very station, WNOX, during the 9 a.m. hour tomorrow morning. So be sure and tune in for it. Tori will probably be sleeping. So,
I may listen. I don't know.
I would... I guess I'll be listening. I'll be here
if I'm not sleeping. Be sure you plug the show.
Oh, we'll plug the show. That's why I'm there. If you'd like a chance to call in and talk about the Patrick Riggins Show, what you like or dislike, or just if you have a question on something we do here, or if you have a question on anything we discussed today, call in tomorrow again, 9 a.m. here on WNOX. That's the Ed and Bob Show. I believe they're on 6 to 10 or something like that, isn't it? Or 5:30, some really early morning time. Yeah. If you'd like more information about this show, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. Also, be sure and hit the like button there, and you don't have to be a member of Facebook. You can just go to that address, facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show, and you can view everything there. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we're also there at @Patrick Riggins. And you can go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/again, Patrick Riggins Show. There you can listen to this show. Probably by tonight or tomorrow we'll have it up. What they do is they go through and they cut out all the little extraneous commercials, and I think they leave in some of our stuff. But
I hope so. So all my fans will be able to listen.
They'll be able to hear Tori's golden voice.
The Tori fan club.
The Tori fan club at the TFC. All right. Anyway, join us again.
Use that. Thank you.
Yeah. You can have that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but as long as you credit me and promote my show.
Let's get some bump out music.
Join me next Sunday afternoon when once again we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins, and we'll see you next Sunday afternoon. We'll try to have not such a weird show that week. No promises. Have a great week.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show every Sunday from 4 to 5 p.m. Be there.